Good evening and welcome to SSBC. This is your program Voices Unheard, where we focus on human rights and uplifting marginal voices. This program is brought to you by JHR in collaboration with SSBC. I am your host, Emmanuel Amin. Media holds a profound role in shaping, reflecting, and challenging gender norms, acting as a powerful tool that can either perpetuate stereotypes or drive inequality. By controlling narratives and representation, media influences social perceptions of gender roles, frequently influencing public opinion on various social, economic, and political issues. To discuss this with me, I am joined in the studio by Jackie Oparo from the Mara Circuit Village. You're welcome to the studio today.
Thank you.
Tell us, does the media shape and reflect norms, and if so, how does it do that?
Thank you. Yeah, so media shape gender norms in two different ways. It can be positive or negative. In most cases, when we looked at the gender biasness, that also leave women at a lot of point as victims to circumstances of, for example, in economics perspective, there are some issues that comes with ownership of resources. And then that also transitions to family relationship that usually go, because it's systemic. The gender norms and the gender bias is systemic. It's in system, it is at play, and it is historical. So it starts from the family level. When you see the hierarchy and the gender roles at the family level, what is supposed to be done by a man and what is supposed to be done by a woman, gradually, because the same people that get into institutions like offices, institutions like maybe universities and different spaces of work comes from family. So the way we are being socialized in gender norms, giving limitations to women on certain specific roles that seems obligation to their daily performance, also affect their leadership, for example, their finances, their contribution even into nation building, because it affects also women's self-esteem. You will find somebody is a mother and they think that's where the dream has ended. It's not that they are willing to do so, but this is how they have been socialized as mothers. You know, what are you supposed to do? So they don't see themselves as women, as leaders in that category, because the society keeps pinning them down given the gender roles.
I'm glad that you have actually mentioned that, because traditional media often limits women to a passive kind of role or to some stereotypes, and which leads women to self-censor or actually not speak up in some certain situations.
Exactly.
How do you think we can encourage women to speak up more despite cultural and societal norms?
Exactly. So when something is culturally at play for a long time, like I said, it is historical, it has been embedded, and the women have embraced this. So what the women need to be taken through is also some sort of self-awareness. You see, when you know your worth, an empowered woman, like for example myself now, I know my worth, I know my contribution, I know I am not being defined by my gender. This is for me. As somebody that has been empowered, as somebody that has been enlightened. It's a different case for somebody that has never been empowered. So I think media can also play roles in education purposes for women to be able to realize their self-worth. Because this comes with self-awareness and self-esteem. When you do not know your right, you do not know your worth, you cannot speak for it. You cannot speak for what you think is not yours, because that's not how you have been socialized. So when women are being enlightened, when women are being empowered to understand themselves, leave alone the society, to understand themselves, their contribution, what unique contribution they can do in different aspects of life, they will be able to challenge these cultural norms. We have seen a lot of women that are leaders. We have seen a lot of women that are role models to us, even if not in South Sudan, in other parts of the country. So it's something also to point out, like, for women to challenge themselves and see themselves beyond what the society tells them. And for these kind of things, sometimes me as a feminist, I am tempted to think sometimes we need really feminist approach to leadership, because that is the gear that will always open women's eye to see themselves beyond what the society tells them.
I'm glad that you've mentioned about the issues of women in leadership, actually, because we know media can advance equality by featuring, such gender transformative content like women in leadership. Why is it important to highlight positive stories by giving voices to such women instead of perpetuating the victim narrative?
Exactly. So, yeah, it's not that we are dismissing the negative narrative, but I think it's very important to feature informations of women's success, to feature informations of women that have made it somehow, impacting, really inciting stories, to also empower the other women to see if, for example, Jackie can do it, for example, if Kafuki can do it, I can do it. It's also to make women, being acknowledged and recognized. There's a lot of things that women do in South Sudan that have always gone unnoticed, leave alone the home shows that is being normalized as a duty. For example, when you leave a man in a house, like even not a week, they will not take that house. Like to do the daily routine that women do, because women are good at multitasking. So I think bringing out positive stories of success that other women have done in the past or is still doing will also empower the other women to see themselves in that picture and also to be recognized. Like women need to be noticed. Their acknowledgement is really something that is important, that can also speak to 1,000 women's effort that have gone unnoticed.
Okay. And in your experience, which marginalized voices do you think are still severely underrepresented or misrepresented in the media?
For me, I see women with disability. In my perspective, I feel like women with disability have not really been considered even in media, because in most cases, not only in media, in also other aspects of institutions, in a lot of times, women with disabilities are being considered as beneficiaries. But then we take their stories. We take their stories of resilience. We take their, how they have overcome certain situations. This is power. This is wisdom. But in most cases, they are not being acknowledged as actually contributors. They are not being acknowledged as implementers. They are not being acknowledged as, people that can equally contribute into societies compared to any other woman that is, for example, not a disabled woman or a person with disability. So I feel like there's so much a stereotype, and also, leaving women with disability out. And in some institutions, when they are being engaged as beneficiaries. But we have seen really a lot of women, persons with disabilities, that are doing really amazing work. What if we feature them as leaders? Because they are not being defined, because now there is an intersectionality issue that comes with identity, especially for women. For example, I am a young woman, that's one identity. I am a young woman with disability. That's another identity. Maybe I am another young woman with maybe a single mom. So these are like 3, 4 different identities on the same person. But then when we don't feature the positive part, and then we also acknowledge them as leaders, as contributors, as implementers, we keep victimizing them, looking at them as beneficiaries. That is exploitation.
Thank you very much, Jackie, for your answer to that. Dear viewers of SSBC, this is, of course, the Voices Unheard. Let us go for a short break, and after we come back, we shall continue with our discussion.
In a world full of noise, some voices are never heard.
As they help me to handle my finances.
This is where silence ends and truth begins.
I have 150 pupils in one class.
Voice unheard.
Become a doctor in my future. That's why I'm studying right now.
Your story matters.
Yes, there are lots of barriers that we face as journalists when we're covering stories, especially stories that are gender sensitive. Of course, culture being one of them. There are a lot of cultural barriers when you're covering stories. Also, the institutionalized and you know, structures that are put in place that usually hinders coverage of stories. And of course, also when we're covering stories, because when it comes to gender, there are a lot of barriers and challenges within society. And usually it makes it very hard even when we're covering the story. So it reflects in the stories that we cover as journalists as well. So in stories, when we are writing as journalists, you have to be very intentional. We have to ensure that the words we are using are not words that are perpetuating or repeating the same circle of stereotypes or gender biasness. We have to ensure that we are very careful with the words we use. If we are covering stories on women, we don't use words like emotional. We don't use words that primarily just bring women as secondary. You have to be very careful, even with headlines. Your headlines have to be gender sensitive. The words that you use in the story, the way you structure the story has to ensure that you don't repeat stereotypes or you know, just repeat the same circle of biasness. From my experience as a journalist, a lot of the times, many women will not feel comfortable speaking to male journalists. They would want to speak to female journalists, especially on issues to do with health, for example. If you're covering stories on women health or something like that, they feel more comfortable speaking to women because they feel they can relate more. So the story can be structured in a way that really brings out the essence or the meaning and the facts of what's happening on ground. So from my experience in South Sudan, yes, it affects a lot. It has impacted the level of coverage in many ways because of also, as we said, we all take it back to culture and other legal or structures that are in place that hinder women from speaking freely. So a lot of the times you find that the gender, as to if it's a man or it's a woman, it really impacts the coverage and how the story comes out, because a woman may not give you full information just because she's not comfortable speaking to you about her health, because she perceives you, you know, you're a male and you're talking to her about things that she feels you cannot relate to her. But if she's speaking to a female journalist or to a woman, she can really narrate or there can be a lot more nuances that can come on board, because you can ask relevant questions pertaining to her, because you'll be more gender sensitive and the story can really be whole as a whole story, yes.
I think before you select news, you first have to deliberate. And as a media house like iRadio, we make sure that during editorial meetings, at least we ensure that issues to do with gender are discussed, such that every day you have at least voices of women. And this is very critical, because if you don't put it like a day-to-day thing, so it becomes very difficult for a journalist to always think about you know, issues surrounding women. And that is very key. We know we are a male-dominated society, and if you don't always make it as an agenda in the newsroom, so they may end up forgetting issues about or surrounding women. So that is one approach that I think traditional media houses should adopt. And also, before thinking about selecting news, you have to think about the staff that you have around you in terms of the composition. Do you have the female journalists around? Because in most cases you find decisions are made without you know, female representatives. So they are very key in running newsroom. So that's what, for instance, iRadio do, and ensure that women are well placed in the news department or even the programming department, if it is to do with talk shows or even sending them to the field. So these are very key things you have to consider before thinking of content related to women affairs. So that's one second approach that we do. When now it comes to creating content, this is where you now think about you think about, for instance, the real voices of women. If you select a story to do with the situation in the country, for instance, go to the marketplace, what you should bear in mind is actually, are the voices you're collecting, are women represented? Are voices of women in that vox pop? So, and when I'm assigning, for instance, a reporter to go and get views of people on the streets, I would always remind them that please do not forget to speak to 2 or 3 women. So that is one approach. You guide the newsroom and ensure that reporters do that. I know there are challenges when reporters go out, but at least you tell them, encourage these women to speak. So that's one thing. And also when it comes to programming, like encourage women to also co-host very, talk shows. Like currently we have a lady who sits next to a man and co-hosting what we call one of the flagship programs of iRadio, The Sundown. And we just did this decision recently when we brought in some interns. And so that is to, have a place for women in the media house so that women out there will resonate with one of them. They will see themselves in that presenter. And it is also important because women see things differently, not as men. So by having women in the newsroom, they will be able to influence what men do not actually see. And that is important in running newsrooms. So I know you spoke to one of former iRadio colleague. She's Kafuki. She's very creative. She looked at, her perspective in the newsroom is different because she suggests very strong ideas, and especially issues surrounding women. And men do not say this. It is because of our mindset. And so that is why it is important always to ensure that women are represented not only in the newsroom, but also when we are speaking to the common mothers and sisters on the street.
Welcome back, dear viewer of the program. Just a reminder, with you in the studio is Jackie Aparo, of course, from Ma Marasakit Village Organization. You're welcome back to the studio.
Thank you.
Media representations profoundly shape societal gender roles by reinforcing or challenging stereotypes, with mainstream media frequently underrepresenting women and stereotyping both genders. Now, despite progress, women remain underrepresented in the news and media organization coverage. How can the media ensure gender balance reporting that is crucial for content creation?
Yeah, I think media institutions can also be consultative. Sometimes a lot of the information that goes out there, and of course I also know women are sensitive beings. And me as a woman, given our societal norms and our certain fear of boundaries, we cannot express ourselves fully. There are a lot of dark spots, for example, that women cannot also speak about when they are talking to a male person. So I think first, media houses or media personnel need to encourage, journalists that are female to deal with women. And also age is an issue. Sometimes I feel like when we are covering stories of certain specific group or age of women, we also maybe need some sort of, some people that range, some reporters that range into that, because there is sort of connectivity with who you speak to, and your experiences, for example. I can be reserved on certain things, not because I don't want to say them, but the person that I'm talking to maybe is an insecurity for me. So I think also media can work that out to see who need to cover what story from who. Yeah.
All right. And digital platforms that are now new, for example, things like podcasts, they offer opportunities to challenge traditional narratives. Do you think the emergence of various technologies is an asset to women's media development?
Yeah, this sort of developing technologies can also play two roles. We have seen what's happening on social media. Sometimes how you report something, you know the intention. Maybe the intention is to pass information or to educate. But the kind of comment, because when you want to see the consumption of informations by the society or by the public, look at the comment.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can post something that's really very sensitive and you're looking for public opinion on validations or how they have taken that information, maybe to give better feedback to show that there's some sort of change in what information you're trying to pass, but all you get is jokes. We see this.
Yeah.
For example, issues like assault. We also saw the assault issue that happened, I think, sometimes back last year with the teenage.
Yeah.
And that video was all over social media. And when you look at the comment, and it's not like young people commenting, even male who are potentially could be a parent to this kid commenting nasty thing. So I think also mindset and what kind of informations really need to, because you cannot control public opinion. Anybody can say anything.
Yeah.
So I think this kind of technologies can sometimes also damage the victim, because damage the victim forever. This kid is still growing. The information has gone out. Facebook, for example, keep reminding you of memories. Maybe after 10 years, you will still see this. So what is that implications on the victim? So I think also for good things, it's really important, like the different technologies can promote, because, for example, one powerful woman that did something very fine and women are proud of, it has gone out, and it's, even if the memory keeps coming out on social media on different platforms, it's something to celebrate. What about now the victim story, something of privacy that remains there forever? So I think also the technologies can really play both sides, and I think media authorities have the opportunity to somehow try to control. I don't know how Facebook operates in South Sudan, because with the kind of young women, for example, that we are working with at Mama Rasakit village, there are cases that when you report certain things, or maybe you report a page maybe that is posting nonsense, or maybe something that's not really okay, when you try to report such pages, you don't get the feedback. So I also don't know, like with this kind of different pages and the authorities and the media operators in South Sudan context, are there some sort of knowledge where you can also educate these individuals on how to report these cases? For example, when something has gone out, how do you bring it down? So this is the knowledge that is also lacking. Something is leaked, before you know it, we have 500 viewers or comment.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Now, exposure, of course, to stereotypical media strengthens belief in gender roles, and of course can limit sometimes career ambitions for women. How can we address this issue in terms of the next generation of young women to take up, for example, journalism as a career?
I think there is first, I really feel like digital safety or digital knowledge need to start from a very early stage. I am just wondering if maybe South Sudan will wake up one day and prioritize digital safety education, some sort of information from a very early stage. Maybe we start from primary school and then we teach them, because some of these kids that are already big will be big maybe after 10 years, 15, 20 years from now are in this institution. Yeah. They've never gotten this information of the digital insecurity part of it. So when they go out there, they can do anything. What if we also have some curriculum that will begin to enlighten, because it's a process. And then also like personal safety. I maybe aspire to be an advocate, and then I just see a lot of nonsense that's happening on social media, for example, gender-related issues, gender violence issues. I will, of course, shy away from, you know, journalism school or even anything to do with social media. But when you get the information and you know how to take care of yourself, first of all, because this thing, some of us become secondary victims of these traumas that are happening, but then what happened to the person that is directly being faced with this? Can they even protect themselves? Can they protect their mental health? So I think there's some sort of education that needs to start early to prepare these women. It's not that men don't go through this, but then I think the average of men and women, or girls and boys that go through gender-based violence and all this digital insecurity, the online assault, the majority are women and girls. We are not dismissing that men don't go. Yeah, men also does go through, but then the range is really way different. So I think for media authorities, maybe we also start journalism classes somehow from a very young age, then they are prepared, you know what you're taking. Yeah.
All right, we're almost at the end, so if there's anything we've not spoken about that you'd like to add, I think this is the opportunity.
Yeah, I think we have exhausted a lot, but I really feel media authorities or social media, how it operates in South Sudan, it's a lot of the question of ignorance and also, you know, the preparedness and also the gender biasness or the gender norms that at some point limit women and girls from this. And then, of course, now when you see what's happening to other women on social media, you will be like, oh, Anamade, I don't want to be part of that problem. And then you bury your dream. But I feel like when we have more female journalists that are prepared from a very early stage, it can create a safe South Sudan for us all.
All right, thank you very much, Jackie, for that input, and thank you very much also for coming to SSBC and giving us a lot about that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Gender equality in the media is not just about fairness, but is also about accuracy. By including more diverse voices, we make our stories more interesting and reach a wider audience. As the media fraternity, we take steps as a vital part of our journey towards journalistic excellence. Dear viewer, we have come to the end of our program that has been Voices Unheard, where we focus on human rights and uplifting marginalized voices. And of course, this program has been brought to you by JHR in collaboration with SSBC. I have been your host, Emmanuel Amin, and until we meet again, have a lovely evening.